Welcome, everybody, to All About Accelerating Products. And this is a podcast where we dive into the minds of industry leaders to uncover proven and practical strategies for speeding up product development, improving time to market, and doing it all without sacrificing quality, compliance, or cost. That's a big ask there, but we try. Along the way, we're going to hear real life stories from founders and product leaders to help you unlock secrets to stay ahead in today's fast-paced world. And with me today is Vish Reddy with Revyz. And I'm Chris McHale. I'm CEO and co-founder of SBK and Associates, and we're an IT solutions company that's focused on product development and accelerating product lifecycle. So Revyz is an Atlassian marketplace partner, which provides a reliable and secure data backup and management platform for Atlassian cloud products. And Vish is going to tell us more about that in a sec. Vish has had about 16 years of experience in product development and lifecycle, most recently with SaaS products. And this is going to be fun because Vish is in the throes of growing your company. And so I think you're going to have a lot of really good real life stories and tips and tricks for everybody to talk about. So I'm really looking forward to this. So first of all, Vish, thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today. I really appreciate it.
Chris, thank you for inviting me to this talk. Happy to share whatever we've learned over the years. It's been a fun journey so far in building Revyz.
Yeah, it's fun, and then it has those moments, right? But which hopefully we'll get into some of those too. So first of all, Vish, you just tell us a little bit about yourself. You got a degree in EE, I think, back in the day, and but almost all of your career has centered around product management. And I'm always interested in what gets people. There's lots of places people can go in tech, right? And I'm always interested in what draws them into the product development, product management field. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So actually, I started off my first job was working for a power plant design company
Oh,
uh,
fun.
many years ago, and then I came to the US, got a degree in EE, but this time it was designing chips. So then I worked at Silicon Graphics, designing
Oh, yeah.
microchips. Power plants to chips. That was an interesting scaling effect, I guess, in the reverse direction, I suppose. But what got me into product development was, as an engineer, I loved what I did, but I had visibility only into the parts which I was responsible for.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, very rarely did I, as an engineer, interact with customers, what they were thinking, how they were going to be using the product. And the chip company, it was a startup I used to work with. I guess, advantages of being in a startup is you kind of tend to do more than what you've signed up for.
That's
And
right.
that kind of exposed me out to the whole new world of, product development. And if you think about it, what goes into a product, how does it look, or what are the functions, what are the features, making those decisions, how do you make those decisions, what is important for customers. I think that was very exciting to me, and that's what kind
Mm-hmm.
of got me into a role in product development. In fact, I took a break after the startup before joining Cisco. Cisco was where my first product management role was. And I went and got a business degree. And as part of that, I did an internship in finance at Intel. And I kind of missed my engineering days back because at least everybody's different. I'm not saying there's a right or wrong.
Right.
Uh, it's just like, what are you empowered to do? Like, what are the areas which you can? And to me, making decisions on product or what the customer wants was something which I was passionate about, and so that's how my
How you
career
got
in
into
product management
It's
started off.
interesting. I always think that the people who are drawn more into product management, we'll just call it that, they don't want the specific silo, right? They like the more overall, overarching role of pulling in all of these different pieces and parts which is what you just described, and making them work, So as opposed to maybe just finance or just engineering or marketing or what have you. You have to do a little bit of everything, don't you?
That's right. You got to be. I don't know whether it's a good thing or not. You got to be jack of all trades, I suppose. If you're getting a product out which eventually customers are going to be using, uh, yes, there is the part of developing it. Again, depending on what you're trying to do, there could be legal implications to it.
Mhm.
You got to, understand that. You got to make sure that you're doing the right things there. And then, of course, I would say in hindsight, or again, depends on the complexity, I suppose. Today, building software products probably not a it's relatively easier compared to many years ago.
Yeah.
But then I think the harder part is how do you get that out to the customer? And so this is where,
Mhm.
to your point, the marketing part, the sales part, there are so many other functions. It's like really a cross-functional effort, and that's
Hmm.
at least that's what my experience has been. The product manager kind of pulls all these different people or functions together depending on the size and scale of your organization. If you're in a startup, you're probably doing a lot of those things. But if you're
Hmm.
a larger company, then you're working with all these cross-functional teams, getting in the right advice, getting in the right experts to help you get that product out from what the engineering team or what somebody conceived it to be, and getting it into customers' hands so that they're using it, and of course then the cycle continues, right?
It never ends. So I'm really excited to talk to you at this point in your development of Revyz because you guys aren't, well, I guess, would you call yourself still a startup? I mean, you kind of are, but you're kind of past that point, I would say. Anyway, we'll hear what you have to say in a second, but I'm just interested in, first of all, what prompted you, and I think do you have one partner or how many founders are there of Revyz?
Revise, we are two of us.
Two of you. Okay. So, what prompted you and your partner to get going and start the company? I think that's always a really interesting story because it talks about some kind of problem or gap that you see, and then you think, okay, I'm gonna solve that problem for people. I'm gonna help people figure out how to get through that. So, what was the story for Revyz? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, it takes me back to 2021. So January of 2021, I just started at an email security company. I was running their product team. This email security company got bought by another larger company. To me, it was business as usual, but for some of the people who were there, that acquisition was not the best for them.
Okay.
You kind of made a comment earlier, you guys have been around for a couple years. This company which is still a startup, was 9 years in the making.
Oh.
Um, and so there were engineers and others, people in other functions who were there for a long period of time. And the acquisition was not the financial outcome was not the best.
Mm.
And somebody was really upset. I don't know who, I still don't know till this day. So my role in that company at that point was head of product, and I would use Atlassian tools, Jira specifically, for
Hmm.
maintaining our roadmaps. And I've started noticing my roadmap was changing without me knowing.
Mm.
I would go on a customer call and I would say, "Hey, this is my roadmap," and 2 days later or 3 days later, another customer call, and I see my roadmap has changed. And like, I don't think I changed it. Who's doing it? And I think that kind of that rabbit hole, which I started digging and trying to understand what was driving those changes without me knowing, because you're the product manager, the head of product, and you don't know how your roadmap is changing. That was pretty embarrassing.
Hmm.
What we figured out later was somebody was going and deleting stuff in Jira.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so now you can connect the two things, right? There were
Yeah.
people who are not too happy.
Yep. Yep.
And they were doing things which, unethical, how you may want to put it. Essentially, from a security perspective, we were under an insider attack.
Right. They were trying to jeopardize the company in some way, shape, or form. Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know all the extent of all the things which happened out there, but the tools which at least I was using, I could see a clear impact of that.
Mm.
That's when I realized, in the Atlassian tool set, if you delete something, it's gone. It's just gone.
Forever. Yeah. Yeah.
There's no trace of it. And to me, that was kind of very, it was bothering me, right? In an enterprise, in all the other companies I work, the systems are such that when any action is taken, it is logged. Who's done what.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Very rare to find uh, systems which don't have those controls in place, especially in today's age, right?
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
the past, maybe different story, but at least today's day and age, a lot of all these systems are very well audited, at least the ones used in enterprises. So that's where the idea was born and saying,
Mhm.
and especially if you think about Atlassian, it's used in, I think their earnings came out yesterday, 300,000 plus customers worldwide. Uh,
Wow.
imagine the impact. you know, I,
Yeah.
right? So thought, okay, this is a good market. I mean, there's a good set of people who are probably running into the same issue. So
Mm-hmm.
there's an opportunity to go and build something out. So that's
It's
how this.
kind of like an inability to get back to a snapshot in time. Is that a good way of describing the problem
Oh,
with?
I guess, very basics, which is, okay, do you know who did what? Let's
Well, the
have
whole
a,
auditing part. Yeah, the
right,
auditing
right,
part's a big deal. Yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
just that, right? At least do you know who did it? And then can you get back what you lost?
Mm-hmm.
Both those parts.
Mm-hmm.
And then when back in 2021, when we went and looked at it, it even the backup part was not, very robust. There
Mm.
was a bunch of work which somebody had to do, and I think even today, it's kind of in that same state of what Atlassian provides natively. And again,
Mm-hmm.
it's not. I wouldn't, uh, fault it at Atlassian. I think that's how the tool sets are. If you go to Salesforce
Oh
or
yeah.
it's the same state, right?
Yeah,
Every
we use actually internally we use Zoho as our CRM. It's the same issue, and I don't think anyone says that they do anything different than that. And but they all say, well, we provide backup, and Atlassian says that too. And they do. I mean, well, except for a couple of incidents, which we could go back to, they didn't lose data. But the problem is backup's more nuanced than that, right? It's not just, oh, I didn't lose data. It's I want to get back to this point in time, or to your point, I have a log of who's changing what, and I understand what's going on with the data in the tool. That's really important. And so that's a really great service that your software is providing. Um, so let's see. Well, tell us some stories if you can about the early days. All right. And well, first of all, you and your founder decided you saw the need, and then you said, okay, did you say we're gonna build a company, or did you say, oh, maybe we'll just build something small that's an add-on? Did you do it for yourselves first in your companies that you were in? Or did you immediately think, oh, this can be a product? Or just tell us a little bit about the story of how that happened. I think that's interesting.
yeah. So the starting point was that incident which occurred, where I figured, okay, there's something which is missing. Now, Sanket, who's my co-founder, I used to work with him at a previous company, and we kind of had this a similar mindset of, okay, let's go build something, let's go see what could be useful for the customer, help solve a pain point for the customer. I think that's the mindset which we've been with. And so I call him up and I tell him, hey, look, not sure if you've run into this. This is what I'm seeing. What do you think? And so, Sanket goes back. We talk after a couple more days, and then you're like, oh yeah, there are some APIs which are available. Let's see if we can build up a solution. And
Mm.
so we kind of put together some scripts to see again, is this feasible at all? Right?
Right, right.
Think of it as a alpha whatever version of
Maybe not even whatever's
yeah,
before A, I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah,
It's just more,
so
is this even going to work? Like, can we even do this thing? Yeah.
So that was step one. So we did our own experiments and then we figured out, yeah, it seems like, it passes the basic test. And we
Mm-hmm.
went and talked to a bunch of other Atlassian admins, asking them, hey, what do you do? Like, uh, how do you back up your data? How, if you have to recover it back, what do you do? Kind of got the answers which we were expecting. I think most of
Yeah.
either most of them didn't know anything about the deletion part, how easy it was.
Cool.
Or the second was they were all aware of it, and it's like acceptable risk is how.
Yeah. 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 Because nothing really bad had happened to anybody you talked to at that point, right? Nobody had a crisis.
Oh, the thing is nobody knew about it because if you
Oh.
delete something, nobody knows.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Wow. Wow.
So even today, when we talk to admins, they're like, "Oh, nothing gets deleted. You're locked up. Blah blah blah." Like, okay, let's try our product
How do
out.
you
We put
know?
it in place, and then we know exactly when somebody's deleting something. Then we go back and say, "Hey, look, did you know that this is happening?" Most of them don't know,
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Wow.
but coming back to the product part of it, so we built up whatever, just checked out to see if we can actually build something. Is it feasible? Um, at that point of time, I think I had left my job and I said, okay, let me go explore this further. Let me do this as a full-time thing. Sanket was also in the process, but he was not yet there. So what we did was we actually went and hired a services company to help us uh, build a real prototype in
Mm-hmm.
um, I could have, between the two of us, we could have done it, but then we're not the experts. When we were learning, so we hired the services company to help us out to build, I guess, let's call it prototype 1.0, which we could actually take it to customers and get it installed. And that actually was pretty helpful because it helped us accelerate, um, you know, whatever we had in our mind,
Right.
we could get it operationalized, much more
Right.
quick
So
than
that's an interesting point because in that spirit of how do you accelerate product development, a lot of people who have the idea, like to go back to an early founder, early startup situation, they think, no, I got to build it myself, and so they'll try to, well, either they'll try to do it themselves if they're developers, or they'll try to hire people or hire 1099s, right? To pull them in to do that. But you guys went another route, which is also a great route, to hire an entire software development company to, you probably provided them with the business requirements and or the user stories, and then worked on that together, and then they went ahead and fleshed it out. So was that sounds like it was successful for you. Were there any downsides to doing that you could see later that our audience might be interested in hearing? Or for you, did it just work well at that point?
in our situation, again, look, every situation is going to be
Sure.
different.
Yeah.
Right. As you said, there are a number of different options. You could go hire somebody, get them on a 1099. Um, and I think all of those things take time. So I think one of the considerations was how do we get this going fast, right? Because
Yeah.
fail fast was
Yeah.
you want to know as early as possible that if this is a bad idea or it's not going
Yeah.
to work, you might as well get out of that, go do something else, right?
Yes.
So,
Right. Right.
so that was the mindset. How do we get going really quickly?
Yeah.
That's I think the reason why we went down that path. It is now from a cost perspective, one could argue and say that's probably a little bit more expensive,
Right. Right.
nothing is free in life. You'll pay in
And I
one.
don't, well, and I always wonder when you add up the money of pulling somebody on, internally, and how much time that then takes versus getting some experts, to do it right out of
Exactly.
shoot, Plus there's the whole, well, then there's lost revenue if you can't get to, market as fast and all of that. So for you guys, were there any pitfalls? Did you have any disappointments with the group, or afterwards say, oh, wow, this didn't work well, or was it all pretty good? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think in our case it worked out pretty well. I
Great.
think
That's
uh,
great.
so. What we did was we got this services company in. we worked with them, as you rightly described. We collaborated very closely in describing what we wanted,
Mm-hmm.
and then they started building that. And then what we also did simultaneously was we also started hiring ourselves.
Mm.
So we got that initial set of experts to help us, get started. And then at the same time, we started hiring ourselves. So now, whatever work they were doing, we were transferring that knowledge over
Yeah.
to new people who are coming. So slowly we transitioned that over. And then actually, right around the same time, so we had decided to go with AWS just because of our experience. We
Sure.
could have gone on to a different cloud too, but I think just based on experience, we went with AWS. AWS had a interesting offer going on around that time. This is actually middle of 2022. Um, so by then we had our prototype built. It was running on AWS, but we had realized that what we had built was not going to scale very well from a
Mm.
cost. So if we added on, I don't know, 100 customers, then we were creating infrastructure multiple times, and the
Mm-hmm.
cost wouldn't work out very well. And
Right.
so AWS had this program where they would, help you, or they'll offset some of your costs for converting your whatever monolithic architecture into a containerized
Ah, okay.
service-based architecture. Now, I don't think we had any monolithic architecture. We just built something brand new, right?
Right, right, right.
Uh, but we were not the experts in using all the different services which
Right.
AWS provided. And
Right.
so I think we had one of our AWS reps who said, "Hey, why don't you guys sign up with another AWS uh, partner company, and they will help you, build the container infrastructure, and that will be useful for you, and also AWS will be splitting the cost with you." So I'm like, "Oh,
Hmm.
okay. Somebody's going to be paying for it. Why not?"
That's great. Yeah.
So I think so. Two places where we went and got an external, not just uh, consultant, not individuals, but two companies to help us to get to where we are.
I think that if you can find the right service company to partner with, and that's a big part of it, right? Because there has to be a match in how they work, their goals and the way that they work, and that it can be a really fantastic way to accelerate. Not the cheapest way, as you pointed out, although with the AWS kick in there, that was a lot cheaper. But again, it allowed you to really uh, move forward quickly and make sure that and then in that case, make sure you're ready to scale. Had you sold anything yet? You had a prototype, or were you just testing it out with various, alpha or beta customers? What were you doing at that point?
Yeah, that's where we were. I think we were
Yep.
just time. So we had the first version ready, but we knew that was not going to scale very well. By then, we had our own people in, but we were not AWS experts, like how to
Yeah.
use services. So that's when we
Yeah.
got other company in to help us do that transformation. Um, and again, we were testing it out with a couple of customers. And at that point of time, cost really didn't matter.
Yeah.
Uh, so it was more about, okay, are we building things up for the future?
Yeah.
Systems in place.
Yeah.
Uh, so, one of the things when you think about it, as a startup, um, of course, everything which you spend on is coming out of, either your pocket or your investors' pocket.
Right. Right.
Uh, well, you got to be careful about where you spend. But I think, um, you know, in our case, I would say we took certain decisions in saying it's okay if we spend a little bit more on,
Yeah.
especially this outsourcing to another company to help us ramp up faster, because yes, the cost is higher initially, but it pays off in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, I think at least that's the view we took. If I had to go do it again, I think time to market probably is going to be always going to be, um, you know, probably the biggest consideration.
Mm-hmm.
Cost is there, but
Yeah.
time to market will beat that in
Yeah.
most. value.
Especially if you think that it's something somebody else is going to come along and give a try to develop, right? I mean, there's always that. Nobody will do it exactly the same way. That's one thing that's so fascinating to me is that the 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 products, especially with the startup where there maybe is just one product or two at most, the products really do kind of mirror and are their expression of the founder's ideas and the founder's experience, right? So even if somebody else said, well, we're going to also do an auditing and backup product for Atlassian, it's probably going to look different. It's going to have different areas of focus. It's going to have different priorities than what you would come up with. Nevertheless, you always want to get there first because if you're first, then it's obviously better, right? So, was there? Tell us just a little bit about the Atlassian marketplace part. So, you're developing a product then that is completely dependent on another company, isn't it? At least initially. Um, what is there anything you did to kind of mitigate that risk, or did you just know, wait, this is a solid company Atlassian is, they're going to be around, the market's huge, we're not going to worry about that. I'm just curious if that factored in at all, or if you ever talked about that.
Yeah, so yes, that was a big consideration. So one of the things, if you think about risk mitigation, again, probably not directly risk mitigation, but at least it helps to some extent. One of the persons who was helping me out and advising me was a gentleman by the name Samir Shah. He
Hmm.
had been in the Atlassian ecosystem for many years. I guess he was out of it, but he was one of the, uh, uh, I would say, one of the companies he used to run called Zephyr. That was one of the first
Oh,
companies,
yeah.
the Atlassian marketplace. So he had a successful exit. He knew, he had seen that marketplace grow. And when he and I met, he was like, "Oh, maybe I should connect you to some of the folks I know in Atlassian. You should have a chat with them." And in fact, that led to Atlassian becoming an investor in Revyz.
I see.
And
Okay.
so, when you think about risk mitigation, it's not a direct correlation, but the fact that they're an investor
Yeah.
uh, is very helpful because they're also
Yeah.
invested in the success of Revyz to some extent.
Yeah.
Uh, so
Yeah.
I think Samir was extremely helpful in connecting me with multiple different folks within Atlassian. In fact, the previous CTO for Atlassian, we sat down with him, had a chat about where Atlassian or what Atlassian's thinking is in the areas which we were thinking of going and investing. And I think all those factors plus Atlassian becoming an investor, help built at least some amount of confidence in saying, okay, if we're there in the Atlassian marketplace or build something on Atlassian, this is going to be for the long term, not just a short term thing. Now,
Mhm.
another thing which I want to bring up with regards to the marketplace itself, uh, you know, w- building a product, the engineering part is one aspect of it.
Yep.
Uh, the the next challenge which comes in is, okay, you have this whatever widget, if we
Yeah,
generalize,
sure.
how do you get that out to customers? How do you
Hmm.
make it simple for the customer to know that you exist or that widget exists? And then how do you make it easy for somebody to transact and buy it?
Hmm.
And that's where the marketplace comes in. Um, you know, Atlassian, they have to cover their costs, whatever, right? They charge some fee, but it is, in my opinion, at least for a startup like how we are, it's well worthwhile because um, being on the Atlassian marketplace gets the visibility the to the type of customers whom you're going after. Uh, they take care of all the billing and licensing part. Uh,
Wow.
so think of this, right? So today, Revyz sells, or I have customers in, I think, 40 plus countries. Let's take the US itself. Let's not even go out,
Yeah,
not even go international. Every state has got its
that's
own
right.
tax laws and things like that, right? Like the
Yep.
accounting part of it. Now you're busy developing a product. You don't typically think of, okay, how do I collect money from, whatever customer one in let's say North Dakota. And
Mm-hmm.
how do I make sure that I'm compliant with the laws of the land out there? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so the fact that we sell through that marketplace, you don't have to worry about any of those, right? When you're getting
Yeah.
started. Now,
Yeah.
once you scale, you could come up with a different decision and say, oh, I
Right.
can do this better, more efficiently, but that's
Right.
for a much later point in time.
Right. That
So
that's a really interesting point because I think a lot of people, especially if they haven't done a product or developed a product or done a startup before, they really don't understand the overhead that's involved with the logistics, right? Of running a company, of order fulfillment, like you just said, and all of the tax and financial aspects of that. It's probably why a lot of people will also they when you're talking more about product, they'll use something like Amazon. Yeah, where they would get the same like so this concept of marketplaces, whatever the right one may be, is I think another area that allows people to really accelerate their product development because otherwise you got to build all of that in. You got to hire people or a service, desk or somebody to handle all of those things and that costs money. So that's a really important point. Yeah.
yeah, I think I still, see the benefits of it, right? It's just not because we didn't have to go invest in those systems. Uh,
Mhm.
I think, and also we're not the experts in like the tax part of it. I didn't realize that every state in the US had slightly different
Yes.
tax rules. Some of them
Yes.
charge you on SaaS products, some of them
Yeah.
don't. How do
But
you keep?
besides that, you actually have to fill out a return and submit a return to every single state, right? And pay them money. That's 50, or if you include Puerto Rico, and yeah, that's a lot. It's really a lot.
Oh yeah, that's why I said we're just talking about the US. Now imagine going
Yeah,
international.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
So
that's a really important point. Yeah, that's a good one to bring up.
yeah, I think uh, yes, there's the engineering aspect of building a product. Then there is, how do you get that product be delivered to the customer? How do you
Mm-hmm.
have that awareness? Um, if you're just talking about a few customers, sure, maybe you can do it all by yourself. But if you're talking globally, if you want to do it,
Mm-hmm.
I think that could be pretty challenging. This is where,
Mm-hmm.
being part of the Atlassian ecosystem, getting to know you guys, right? SPK,
Yeah.
I know SPK before I got into the Atlassian ecosystem. And so I think just building the network out of all the partners who are there who help you resell,
Yeah.
Atlassian marketplace, I think all these things are
Yeah.
is can you expect something similar in every other ecosystem? Probably not. Again, it depends. Pros and cons. Like in this case, we are building something on Atlassian. Now, if you don't want to be doing that, then what? Where do you go? Now there, nowadays there is AWS, Azure, GCP. Even
Yep.
they have built out their marketplaces. Now,
Yep.
again, the assumption is you're building on their infrastructure.
Right.
You're able to
Or
deliver.
even Salesforce. I've met a number of founders and new product companies that are building on the Salesforce platform. Same kind of concept. You can I think list your product in their marketplace. I don't know as much about that, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I think that these the different marketplaces are emerging. I think on the app side of things, besides the public cloud infrastructure, which is AWS, GCP, and Azure, I think Salesforce has got a pretty good marketplace platform out there.
Hmm. Yeah.
Uh, and Atlassian, I think, tries to they look up to Salesforce and saying, how can we be doing that,
Oh,
or how.
interesting. Okay, yeah, kind of copying them a little bit. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Just switching gears a little bit to more of the engineering or the product development side, as opposed to the management side. Were there any applications or processes or anything that you guys put in place relative to the development of your product, the actual software development? We like to call it a software factory, like the creation of your software factory. Were there any things that you guys did that really helped with either acceleration or cost containment? You've already mentioned a couple here with using these partners, but I'm just wondering if there was anything else that might be helpful to the audience to hear about.
I think there are two things which were always top of mind and they still remain to be top of mind even today, given what we do and the type of customers whom we are trying to engage. One is security,
Mm.
uh, and then second for us, I think there's more internal is the cost. While public cloud infrastructure is great, it gets you started. You got to be conscious about, because every bit you'll get it'll be part of the bill eventually.
Hmm.
Now, on the security side, one of the things which we did right up front was, we consulted with a company which does audits with an auditor, SOC 2,
Hmm.
or auditor understood what they're looking for, what are the things which we should be doing upfront, because um, you could make your SOC 2 audit really easy, or you could make it really
Yeah.
hard yourself. And especially as you grow, it becomes harder.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I think we took certain steps. We baked in certain processes, I should
Hmm.
say, that helped us, get through that SOC 2 audit process, much more um, easily than if we hadn't. I think that's something which I think that was a good decision. Again, you got to spend a little bit, but I think it's worthwhile. And then just being cost conscious about how you're, or just modeling out, uh, what it would cost being on uh, any public cloud. It doesn't
Hmm.
matter. All of them are roughly, they have their advantages pricing wise. They're close enough.
Yeah.
But having a sense of what that is going to look like, what is that bill going to look like? Um, Of course, you can't predict everything, but at least making some assumptions and knowing what to expect, I think is something which I would recommend people to do. Of course, you won't have all the all the pieces of information.
Right.
You could make your assumptions, and then as time passes by, correct the model based on those assumptions. But I think that's a worthwhile exercise because I've seen, um, again, as I think you also kind of pointed this out earlier, which is the product is based on is the how it looks, how what it does is based on the past experiences of the people who are
Hmm.
building that out. And one of the experiences me and Sanket both had was with regards to AWS costs. If you
Hmm.
don't keep that in mind, those could suddenly be out of control, and then you spend a lot of time trying to, get them in control.
Yeah.
Uh, so, just being conscious of it upfront might would help, is what we think.
Yeah. That's good. That's a really good advice. Probably not something people if they haven't had the experience you guys had, they wouldn't think about it, because people think, oh, cloud, it's cheap, inexpensive, which it is compared to buying a bunch of capital equipment for sure. But it definitely adds up. And especially our own experience with AWS is it is complex and there are an incredible number of services that you can buy. And you probably have had the same experience. If you get that bill and you try to dig into what things are in there, and it is impossible. You have to write code, you have to write an application for yourself or buy something, to figure out what you're actually spending your money on and what you can cut or not cut. So that's a very
I
apt
guess
point.
an interesting thing which I was doing just before this call was I was just looking at uh, from a cost management perspective on
Uh-huh.
AWS. It would typically go reserve databases
Yeah.
and instances,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
It's cheaper.
uh,
Yeah.
yes, and so uh, it- and again, as we grew, we've gone and made those reservations. So all those reservations don't expire on the same day. It's not like
Right.
you have a renewal on one day, right? All the things. And so one of the reservations, I think this is so we operate out of 5 data centers. And all of these data centers came alive for us at different points in time. And so
Yeah.
there's an expiry for whatever we've gone and reserved in those data
Oh
centers.
my gosh. Yep.
So we got to keep track of that, make sure that we are renewing it and doing the uh,
Yeah.
right
It's
things.
a
That
whole, it's spawned an entire, um, not industry, but disciplined, I would say, called FinOps, right? Right. So that everybody who's involved in developing a product or using the public cloud in that way, which of course not everybody that's a product developer cares about the cloud, but most people care somewhat about the cloud because some aspect of their product, even if it's a physical product, they're collecting data in the cloud. They're doing something these days. So it's I think it's an apt piece of advice for anyone who's developing any kind of product. Keep your
And I
eye
think
on that.
you're spot on. It's spun up a new function,
Mhm.
FinOps, as you called it. I think in a nutshell, it is looking through that bill. It could be pretty large,
Oh my
depending on
gosh.
what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think we learned it, first-hand experience about 10 years ago, where we had to go look into that bill, and the
Hmm.
spike, and nobody knew what was causing it.
Right, right. Oh, it's
And
funny because we do a lot of hosting for different companies. You can only imagine like trying to manage each of those things. We've ended up writing a lot of custom code for ourselves to be able to, because at the risk of sounding critical, AWS does not make it easy. I don't think they want to make it easy. Right? So everybody, each man to themselves. To be fair, I think it's just so incredibly complicated. I'm not sure what they could do about it, but yeah, you can literally dump an entire Excel spreadsheet of thousands and thousands and thousands of rows and then try to figure out what's what. So that's funny. Well, we're starting to run out of time, unfortunately, but I was wondering if you have any, I don't know, last words or advice or anything that you have gained from the School of Hard Knocks that you would want to pass along to somebody else, or somebody that might be in your position 4 or 5 years ago today. Is there something else that you might want to tell them or give them advice on? It doesn't have to
yeah,
be technical. It could be emotional too, whatever.
I think it's a very simple thought, which is, um, if you're building a product, make sure you're solving a problem, meaning you may think it's a problem, but I think engaging customers, or I should say customers, prospects,
Hmm.
understanding and being in their shoes,
Hmm.
and seeing what are the real challenges which they are facing.
Yeah.
Because you may think, okay, this is you'll always think your baby is the best thing which is out there. But
Mm.
then once you're in the customer's shoes or the prospect shoes, if you see what are the challenges they face, you may actually get even better ideas. Uh,
Right.
right? And then it's a decision which you have to make, whether you want to solve that
Right.
problem, or how does
Right.
what you think, what is the view of the world which you have versus what might be reality. Trying to bridge that out early, I think, is something.
So to use the words of sort of the whole lean movement, get out of the building, get out of your office and actually talk to people and find and really listen, right? Don't go in with a preconceived notion of what you think the answer is, but really try to listen for what
Yeah.
their specific issues are. And then you have to kind of, synergize that into whatever it is that you're doing and make sure there's enough of a market for it, right? I mean, a lot of times you can say, oh, here's this amazing problem we're solving, but only 10 people have it or 100 or something like that, right? It's a funny thing that everybody talks about, and yet there's a lot of people that still don't do it.
I know, you
It's
know,
crazy. Yeah.
I, you know, I've, I should say, knock on wood, and I think we're just lucky, and I'm just happy with where we are. It's a lot of things which came together.
Mm.
I know of people who started just around the same time. It's a tough market out there. If
It
you
is.
we you assume that everybody's going and actually talking to customers, you would be surprised when you talk to people and saying, "Hey,
Yeah.
have you done this?" I'm like,
Well, and I think sometimes in the technology space where you're developing a technical product, a lot of the people who have the ideas to develop it are technical and they're engineers, and they may not be the most comfortable, going out and having somebody say that's a stupid idea or that doesn't work at all for me and being okay with that. you have to have a little bit of a thick skin and be willing, like we said before, to really listen. But yeah, I mean, it depends on the person a bit. It is hard to do. It's not easy, and you have to find strangers sometimes to talk to, and you have to be willing to listen. So, but
That's
it
right.
is so important, and you guys have clearly done that really well. And I think the world of your product, by the way, and we've used it with a bunch of our clients, and yeah, having my own scars from our own company, not with Atlassian, but another SaaS product where we literally lost a ton of data. Fortunately, it was important data, but it wasn't earth-shattering, can they kill the company data, but that was really a lesson. Um, that it was gone. There's no getting it back. So when I first heard about Revyz, I thought, oh yeah, no, I know what this is about. This is very, very helpful. So
I
thank
don't
you
know
for
if you
doing that.
heard just recently, back in May, I guess this year, a company called UniSuper.
Hmm.
There's a Australian company which manages, I guess, billions of dollars of retirement funds. Just like the Fidelity in the
Hmm.
U. Um, and they were hosted on Google Cloud. Um, and imagine their entire account getting wiped out.
Oh
So
my
all
God.
their infrastructure is, I guess, for the most part, on Google Cloud. All the application, whatever the front end web server, the database which is hosting, all the, whose money goes into what mutual fund, all of that kind of information. I think it was like 20 billion, or maybe I'm missing a zero.
So it was all wiped out. They lost all.
They lost all, including the backups. So obviously Google Cloud takes backups too, right?
Yeah.
Even those are gone. Apparently,
Wow.
there's some setting somewhere in Google Cloud which had an expiry or something.
Oh my gosh. What did
And,
they do? I mean, how did they go out of
uh,
business or
uh,
what happened?
so the saving grace was they were taking offline backups, meaning you know
Yeah.
they were taking a backup of their critical data and storing it somewhere outside. Like think of the Iron
Yeah.
Mountain kind of a
Yeah,
situation.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Tape drives, old school. So that's what saved the day for them, I think. Now, if you just search up on Google, just search up UniSuper and say
Okay.
Google, two keywords. You'll
Okay.
find a press release from the CEO of Google and person who runs UniSuper, joint press release, because you never find these kinds of things. Why would the Google CEO go and do a press release? This is the reason. Like I think at 20 or 200 billion, maybe I'm missing a zero somewhere there.
That's
Billions of
crazy.
dollars of funds, retirement funds, just vanishing.
That is really that is a Halloween horror story. The day after Halloween. That I mean, really, as a person who's been involved in infrastructure and IT for all my life, I, my heart sank when you said that. I just couldn't even imagine. There was the cat. I couldn't even imagine dealing with something like that. And yeah, and there are they still on Google Cloud? Well, I guess you're saying that it was one of their own. They made the mistake, I guess, by not
I
resetting
think at
this.
least from the press release and the after action report or
Yeah.
whatever they put out, I mean, it was something related to Google Cloud. I believe the company was able to get back to a certain extent, or it took about 3 or 4 weeks. Uh,
Wow.
they could get the offline data. I guess the most important thing was knowing, whose data was, whose money
Right.
was where, I suppose.
Oh
Uh,
gosh.
and then, of course, rebuilding that entire, infrastructure.
And then
Uh,
don't you really wonder how many clients they lost? I mean, they probably haven't talked about that, but how many clients would they have lost? Because those people didn't have access to any information for 4 weeks. Right.
Right. I think there's a whole bunch. If you again just type in those two keywords,
I
UniSuper
will.
and Google, you'll find a bunch of things. I think
Yeah.
Reddit and some of
Yeah.
the the people sites where you can go and exchange information. I think you'll find posts about what people did. That this has also gotten in more scrutiny
Mm.
because this is, I guess, financial services. It's kind of it falls under the regulatory
Yes, right.
Right. So I think in Australia, the government is starting to look into saying, okay,
Yeah,
what companies have to do if such a thing again happens.
right.
So again, there's good and bad, right?
Yeah.
The good is, I think, accidents do happen, and so you got to
Yep.
have some processes in place uh,
Hmm.
to kind of, overcome
Yep.
those
Well,
incidents.
well, it's like somebody told me way back when I first started in this technical career, they said it's not a matter of if you're going to lose data. It's a matter of when. Like it is going to happen, right? So just you just have to have a plan B. You have to have some other uh way of getting it back. And if you always have that, it may be painful, but you're never gonna go out of business. I mean, it's never gonna be
Again,
necessary.
just life experiences, right? Like we both live in California, so
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure you have a plan in terms of, oh yeah, there's an earthquake or something, like,
that's
there's
right.
a plan B, like, what
That's
to do.
right.
I think that's true with companies too. They need to
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, especially with data, as important and more importantly, as the increasing importance of data keeps happening, it's a lifeblood of a company, and you just really need to treat it that way. But fortunately, there's companies like yours that can help us do that. So anyway, Vish, it's been a delight having you on. Thank you for sharing, your ideas and experiences with everybody. I'm sure it'll be very helpful. So thank you.
Thank you so much for hosting this and inviting
Yeah.
me.
Okay, great.